everybody. This is the April meeting of the Brazil Fire Commission, and we have a quorum, Commissioner Skoboak and Chief Beaudry, myself, and our township liaison, our clerk, O'Connor. So we'll begin by calling the meeting in order and standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's look at the agenda. I think we have a couple of changes. I think...
Well, I would like to make a motion to remove action item confirmation of Fire Commission Chair
So moved. Or support, sorry.
and to ask Dawn to put it on the agenda for our May 12th meeting.
Aye.
Aye. It was felt by everybody that it was best that the entire board be present for that vote to be made.
All right, let's move on to the minutes for the 2022.
Motion to approve the February 2022 meeting minutes.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This next item, approval of the Fire Commission meeting dates.
I'll make a motion to approve the Fire Commission meeting dates for 2022-2023.
Second?
These are all the second Thursday of the month, and of course, there will be some changes from time to time, but right now, this is the way we operate. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Chief, you want to talk about this monthly report? I think all I see is February. Do we have March? Oh, we do have March.
As you can see, your revenue and expenditure report for February and March is here. Last day of our 2021 budget was March 31st. Starting April 1st, we did go into the new fiscal year.
I see some notes to this. How did we end up year end?
Our fiscal year end was right where we predicted it would be. We did have some increases in insurance costs for the firemen. Our rates did go up. Most of our other costs were within normal limits. Some of our maintenance on our equipment went up. We have some new things. We have a tax on the ambulance that the state is now imposing on us for every rescue run we take. They tax us. Another unfunded tax. They're getting creative on how they tax. I'll say that much.
Rusty, I see some notes made here and some numbers penciled in. Overall, how did we end up the year?
Overall, we ended up in the red slightly. Nothing more than we anticipated. For 21-22, we did get some relief from the COVID relief funds. That did help us.
Yep.
And we also have some money coming from the COVID relief funds for the 22 budget. That's going to help us out as well. So overall, each year the budget grows. We all know that. And we're watching every penny we can on the fire department. We've tightened the purse strings, and we're doing everything we can to keep everything in line as well as can be anticipated.
Well, and as we learned yesterday in our meeting with Township Manager Teal and Supervisor Budney, that the COVID relief funds will carry this department forward through the end of 2023. And so for this year and for next year, we feel very confident that we can use those funds and secure the healthcare benefits and the operations of our department. So that was something that we learned when we met with the supervisor and manager yesterday.
Correct. We did move some line items around to manage this budget, to keep this budget going. And again, the COVID relief funds, we're very grateful for that. So, yes.
Well, unfortunately, as we know, COVID is far from over. I don't know that there will be additional funds coming our way in the future. If you listen to the news, you'll hear that Canada has announced it is worried about a sixth wave going through right now its West Coast provinces. Ontario is starting to reapply mask mandates. So I don't know, we don't know what the future holds, but we do know we have those funds that will carry us through 2023. So that is maybe cold comfort, but it is comfort.
Anything extraordinary about some of these overages?
As you know, our biggest increase is going to be healthcare. That's across the nation. It's not, that increase is not just for us. It's all over. And we're feeling the pain as well as everyone else across the country. Medical supplies continue to increase. The cost of the medical supplies, not only getting our hands on them is difficult, but costs are skyrocketing on that as well. And each and every year we do more and more on the ambulance. We do more and more with our medical calls. And we get into more and more things, and everything that we do, it costs money. It costs money to keep a fire department running.
Looking at this one item, part-time temporary employment for fire operations, we went over quite a bit. Can you explain that?
That's what we use for our healthcare costs, Jerry. That helps with the premium.
We got COVID money to offset that?
COVID money did help us out this year. That with the COVID money, we were able to get by, and that did give us a good shot in the arm this year.
Well, and it was justified because I think COVID also drove up our healthcare costs. Nationwide, but the fact of COVID drove up healthcare costs. So there was no way we could have anticipated that kind of an additional jump in expenditure. So I think we are fully justified in having the COVID funds and in using the COVID funds to cover our department.
Correct. Our healthcare costs went up 20% this year.
Yeah.
The carport, we hadn't budgeted for that. Is that why that's a negative?
The carport is, we still have some concrete left to do. We did have a few things, but the carports overall, we saved a heck of a lot of money versus the storage building that we were anticipating putting up. We did it with the carports for a quarter of what we would have spent on that storage building. We did have some engineering costs, CE Rains. We had to do a couple of things, and we did run into, when we were putting in the columns for the carport, we did run into some pipes in electrical, and that had to be repaired. Both of those items that were not anticipated.
Are there any other questions for the chief on the expense report? Now, need a motion to accept the report.
So moved.
Second?
Favor?
Aye.
I want to go into your report, and why don't you start out with the fire EMS? I see that wasn't.
Yes, we had a electrical fire in front of Meridian Elementary. It happened approximately 4 o'clock in the morning on a windy night like we have currently. The telephone pole with the transformer caught on fire in front of Meridian Elementary, and the power lines were in danger of falling across Meridian Elementary, as well as shutting the power off to Meridian. So we had a unique situation. You can't put water on electrical lines. The outcome's not good, and it's deadly. So the only thing we could do was shut off traffic in case that telephone pole fell across the road. We could not let cars get through there. We did not want to risk those power lines falling down on top of them. Yeah. And we had to wait for DTE, and on busy nights like this, DTE scattered all over the state, so it took a while for them to come out. I think the whole call lasted from 4 o'clock in the morning till roughly 3 o'clock the next afternoon, when it was secured. And DTE did a temporary fix. I believe sometime, I'm guessing after school's out, they will go back and replace that pole and finish that job. But for right now, they have it buttressed up, and they did what they did to get the road open and school back in service. And once the kids are gone from school and they can get in there and operate safely and put that telephone pole in safely, I'm guessing they will. So
What I never knew before, my husband is connected to DTE, and we found out that they tone out almost all their employees that have any possible ability to help when something like that happens. And even for some, it's just an FYI, and for others, it's, get out there right away. So I found that was very interesting, and I think their response was also very quick.
a good public service announcement, especially on a night like tonight. If you have a down pole, down lines in your backyard, stay away. Keep your pets away. That power can jump. I had a friend who lost his little girl because she got too close, and the line arced, it jumped out, and it killed her, and this was 30 years ago. The fire department, we will get out there. We will try to put up yellow tape. We rely on the neighbors to notify each other. We cannot keep a man there on that pole, unfortunately, because we're dealing with so many others, and we just don't have the manpower or the resources to keep somebody sitting on that or parked there until DTE comes out. DTE at the same time, they're running like crazy during these operations, and they're trying to get to us as quick as we can. That's where we rely on our citizens to let our neighbors know, keep an eye on them, and we need you to be the watchdogs. If that power line's in your backyard or across your property, don't let anybody near it, especially pets, especially kids. DTE's trying to get to them as quick as they can, and sometimes it takes a couple days. So we need you to watch those lines, watch all of that for us. As you know, we've got 20 firefighters. We're running all over the island, trying to keep the roads open, trying to keep lines down that are dangerous, and trying to protect the citizens as best as we can. And we just don't have the manpower to have them sit on these power lines.
And so we also have to learn to respect the yellow tape when we see it, and don't think because we don't see somebody there that it doesn't mean anything.
We'll get there as quick as we can. We've had a number of storms come through the island. I remember a couple of years ago, and not that long ago, we responded to 55 calls in a 4-hour period with lines down, power lines down. The last one we had last summer, we had a tree that knocked down power lines that were on a house. The roof was smoldering on the house because of the power lines. At the same time, we had a tree on top of a car, and it was reported occupants inside. We were running all over the island in a 5-minute time period trying to categorize each call and taking the most important ones first, knocking them down. We had trees across Church Road, and we were trying to get to them all and get all of that taken care of as fast as we can in as short a period of time as we can. So we're hopping. We're running, and we're trying to assess the situation and move on to the next one, because we don't know if the next one's even more dangerous or deadly than the one we're on now. So we take care of that, and we're always happy, very happy to see the DTE trucks come onto the island.
Thank you, Chief. Good reminder for the island people. I've looked over, I don't know if you've all had a chance to review the EMS calls. It doesn't look to me like there's anything out of the ordinary, unusual, or anything. Anything you'd like to point out, Chief?
Nothing that's newsworthy, crazy, different from our normal calls. We're busy, as you can see. You can see the long list of calls through March. They're not slowing down, that's for sure.
I think the one thing that is noteworthy, again, that we discussed previously at these meetings, is that the vast number of our calls are veering toward healthcare related calls and not so much fire related calls, even though obviously those are still there too and are still very important. But you can see that just by the numbers even you gave me on Monday, I think we had 157 ambulance healthcare calls, responses in the last 4 months. That shows how heavily the community is relying on us, on your team, to show up for these events.
Without a doubt, the medical calls outnumber the fire calls. With the advent of smoke detectors, it's done a great deal to keep the number of fires down. We're just more conscious, and we don't deal with fires in the numbers that we used to. But when we do get them, they're big.
They're big. They're there.
They're there, and we've had a number of whole house fires. Christmas Eve, as you remember, we got hit with 3 of them: a house fire, a medical, and a car in the water within a 2-hour period. And again, our firemen were out there; they were hopping on Christmas night. So,
Kurt just pointed out to me, and I think it's something I didn't see, but it's we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 incidences of altered mental status disorder. Are we showing an increase? It looks like an increase. I hadn't caught that. But
altered mental status is it's one of the signs, either possibly for stroke, or it could be diabetic. if the person's experiencing a diabetic emergency, their sugar's low, they're going to do that, and or an infection. A lot of times, infection in the body will present itself with a confused altered mental status. So we're seeing a lot of those just by the nature of our population. As you know, the majority of our calls are on our elderly, and our population on Grosjean is continuing to age. Our elderly population is growing, and because of that, we're dealing with more and more medical emergencies that are geared towards our elderly population.
So these are precursors to strokes as opposed to some of the other.
Oh, some of them too are because of psychedelic drugs. It could be a number of things. When we write these in our medical reports, these are the codes that we're given, and they start out in this category. And then from there, they go into deeper and deeper detail.
Year over year, is there an increase?
Our increase in medical calls typically increases 10% per year. I believe last year we went up, I want to say 15%. We went up quite a bit last year. Every year our call volume goes up. It does not go down.
This year, no exception.
If we do go down, it's the exception to the rule, not the norm.
Okay.
You see on, we have an injury of hip is one of the calls. One of the things that I think I've said in the past before, that's a common call in the middle of the night. Our senior population, they get up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night and they'll trip on a throw rug and they break a hip. If you have elderly parents, best recommendation I can make is get rid of the throw rugs. I've been to so many households, geriatric households, where they didn't see it in the dark, didn't anticipate it, their foot caught it, and they go down, and we're dealing with a broken hip.
Okay, anything else on this, on the runs?
That's it for the runs. Going back after the electrical fire on the front page, first page. We also, I want to bring up, we did apply for a grant for the Jaws of Life. Anytime we put in for grants are very, what I call time and labor intensive. Quite a lot of paperwork. They put us through the ringers when we do these grants. So we have applied. I want everyone to know that the office staff, Don and Kevin, they're in, I think Cindy helped as well. They're putting in a lot of man hours applying for these grants to help our fire department. And this is not something that takes a day or two. Generally, it takes 2 to 3 weeks sometimes to get all the paperwork together to apply for these. And we're trying to save our township every penny we can with these grants. And sometimes it's a lot of work, and we get turned down. It's just the way the grants are. There's a lot of applications, and they're looking over, hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands for grants at times. And we do what we can to get those in there.
Does anybody apply for those on our behalf? Do we hire anybody to put the grant together, or how's that work?
You can hire a grant writer. When we went out with the other fire departments in Downriver, a grant writer was hired to help submit those grants so that we could get our SCBAs. And it's not cost effective for just us, the price of a grant writer. So we try to do as much as we can in-house. Especially some of the grants we know ahead of time they're going to be difficult to get.
Well, and what they're looking for is a lot of forms, a lot of figures that are specific to your department, and they just want to get justification for why you would want it, why you need it. What is your need vis-a-vis somebody else, and having filled out quite a few forms for our medical practice this past couple of years, everybody wants to cover their assets and wants to know exactly what it is that you want. So a lot of times it is best that you have internal people that can actually work on those grant proposals. But where courses and professionals can help may sometimes be in knowing what are the ins and outs that particular foundation is looking for. What are some of the buzzwords, keywords that they're looking for.
We try and take advantage of that where we can.
Well, and we have quite a few people on this commission and on our boards that, kind of help out the various departments because they have that kind of connection or that kind of knowledge. Right, Jerry? Yeah.
Good. Okay. Do you want to talk briefly about the millage?
Number 4 is our fire department. We're looking into the future, and we do have discussions going, talking about a millage. Our intention is to keep the fire department going as you see it now. And we are looking into the future with projections. Like everything else, we've had the same millage since 1960. So we're studying everything all the way around. And we're doing our due diligence. So.
As your liaison, I guess I just want to add, like I said, Chairman Bringard, Chief Beaudry, and I met with the supervisor and the township manager, not for the first time. They've been working with Chief Beaudry. They've been working with the chair. We've all been working together to try to get the right information together. We're working with the finance department. As we noted earlier, Supervisor Budney and Manager Teal believe that we are well set for the next 2 budget years. And they explained to us why they thought it was premature to put a question on a ballot in 2022 when we don't propose needing the money until 2024. But this is still an ongoing conversation. No decisions have been made. The entire board is not part of the discussion at this time. I think what we are preparing for is that when we meet with the entire board, we can answer all of their questions, any anticipated questions. We can outline what we believe our needs are, our wants are, and where we can satisfy some of those but not others. So basically, we know we have to make a case, and much like writing a grant proposal, we have to, put together our case to convince the members of the board, and then ultimately the public that this is the way we need to go. One thing that they do want to know is the number we gave them from our February motion. Is that going to be enough? They wanted to know where we got that number. And so our job is to outline where we got that number and possibly answer the question, do we actually need more or do we need less? We need to be able to justify that. Because they know we don't just have to deal with our healthcare costs. We have other costs that are going up, other expenses that are going up. And so they want to make sure that when we do go out, that we know exactly what we're asking for. And so, and they feel very strongly that when we go through this process, we will secure the support of the board and the support of the community to move forward. So, I just wanted to say that to reassure people that just because you don't hear us talking about this on social media or at our various meetings, that this process is taking place and that we are taking it extremely seriously. This is a vital department for the township. I want to rest assured to people too, even though we may say technically the township does not need to have a fire department, realistically, the people of this township have made it very clear we want a fire department. We need our own fire department. So we are fully aware of that, and we are working very hard to make sure that we can maintain the level of service that we've gotten used to and want to continue improving even. So, I'm relatively new to this commission, but I see how hard everybody here is working toward that one goal, to provide the best possible services to us. And I think each one of our volunteers puts it on the line every day, because the person they're responding to could be a family member, could be a neighbor, could be a friend. They treat us all like we could be a part of their family. And, like on Christmas, you said, they were out there protecting the community. So that is something that we understand, and we want to keep going.
Our fire department, our men, they do a great job. And women, thank you. I'm sorry, I apologize. We want to keep that fire department going. Every day our costs increase, not only in healthcare, but to keep the operation running. And it's something that we need to sit down, we need to look at. We're continuously dealing with the cost increases of medical supplies, everything across the board. And it's our goal to keep this department going.
You might also mention over the years have increased the skill set and the expertise and the professionalism. Our men and women can do much more now than they did early on.
Yes.
I mean, and every year the requirements go up and we meet the standard.
The demands that we put on our firefighters, the men and the women of this fire department, increase every year. And every year we ask them to do more. And we are met with increases across the board in everything we do.
But I think to that end too, and this is something that I think we have the talent to do, and we have we'll search for the resources in the community, is to further educate our residents just to what level our firefighters are trained in healthcare and in fire response. They may not have fancy titles. They may not have the top of the line certifications that, say, the professionals have, but they have the abilities, they have the skill set, they have the training, and they have the desire to perform at that level. So I think most of us everyday residents aren't always aware of just how much training and effort goes into our department. And learning about that has been just really impressive to me.
Let me expand upon that. Our firefighters are held to the same standard as a full-time firefighter in a full-time fire department. We go through the same schooling, the same training. Our EMT license are the same for a volunteer as they are for a full-time firefighter. They don't make a difference in the state of Michigan whether you're volunteer or a full-time. We are held to the same standard. And our firemen, they go to school, they have to take the national test, and they have to pass that the same as everybody else. There are no exceptions because you are a volunteer. We put in the same training and the same work, and they work every bit as hard. And a fire doesn't care if you're a full-time firefighter or a volunteer. It's just as much work either way.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you both. Let's move on to the carport concrete.
The last thing that we have left to do in the carports, we talked about it earlier, there was some, when we were putting in the foundation for the columns for the carports, they did cross some electrical pipes and cut those wires. Those pipes had to be dug up and fixed, as well as the pipes that were for the drainage underneath the carports. One of those pipes was hit as well. Unfortunately, they're not marked on the blueprints, and there's no way to find that until we hit them. And once that was done, they were repaired. Now we're, from what I understand, talking to Derek, we're going to be getting together with Compo, and Compo will be replacing that concrete that needs to be done in those sections. After that, that project will be 100% complete.
Finally. Okay. Next item, Mako Air.
The next item is our Mako air station that we use to fill our self-contained breathing apparatus tanks. These are the tanks that we wear on our back when we go into a fire so that we can breathe the air out of those tanks. They use a hydro bank made out of large steel tanks. They look like large oxygen tanks. Every 5 years, those have to be hydro tested. And it was difficult because they're a high pressure tank. We had a call. It took me about 3 months to find a company that would do it, that would come to us, take those tanks, take them back to their facility. Those tanks are 6,000 PSI, and I think they pump them up 3 times that in a concrete vault to make sure they don't explode, to make sure they pass. And it took us a long time to get that done. They got it done, and they brought them back. They reinstalled them, and we're good for 5 more years. So glad to have that knocked out of the way.
Oh, that's good. Okay, we've already discussed the millage. Item F there.
Item F is we have a rack that we're going to be getting for the fire department. What that is should we ever have a high trauma event like we saw at Oxford High School earlier in the year, we have totes or bins that we have medical supplies stored in great numbers for traumatic injuries, shootings, things like that. And if we have a mass casualty incident, these trauma bins will be stored in the racks that are coming next to the pickup truck in the bay so that our guys can get into the building, grab those totes, throw them in the back of the pickup truck, and take that pickup truck as well as our ambulances directly to the scene, and we will be able to deal with a large number of mass casualty if we ever should come across that. So that those racks, we ordered them early March, and they should be arriving, again, knock on wood, supply chain issues with everything across the country, but they should be arriving sometime in April, and we'll assemble those racks. We'll get those mass casualty medical supplies together in those bins, and we'll have them at the ready should we ever need them.
That's very good. That's very good. So we're just ready to go. God forbid we have something like this.
We try to anticipate everything we do, and there's a little story behind this. One of our firefighters, Tim Lorraine, put together a trailer with these bins in them prior to COVID. And this trailer was sitting in the fire department, but during COVID, we could not get medical supplies. And we were scrambling to get gauze, we were scrambling to get all kinds of things, and I asked my fire marshal, Kevin, I asked my administrative assistant, Dawn, you know, we're not getting these supplies, and they were telling us back then, in the beginning, and I'm hoping I'm remembering this correctly, but they were saying 6 months maybe before this stuff came in. So we raided those bins, and we used what we needed out of those. We took everything out of those to keep us going until the medical supply chain started again, and it's taken a while, but we're back to filling those bins in this year. It's been a rough go, but I thank Tim for putting that together. I thank all the firemen. It wasn't just Tim. There was a number of firemen that worked on that project, and we want to get that up and running and going again. So I can't thank anybody. And the time they put in to do that was, again, volunteer time. They came in on their own time. We had a trailer. They worked on that trailer themselves on the weekends, on nights. The police ended up needing to borrow the trailer, and we lent it to them. They're using it for some of their projects right now, and we're going to have these bins stationed next to the pickup truck so that if we get put in a scenario like that or a situation, we can rapidly grab those medical supplies, load them on a pickup truck, and head out as fast as we can.
This is not to sow panic or anxiety in the community. I think through the pandemic, we've all learned, you know, the pun, no community is an island. Even though we are an island, we have to be careful that we're prepared, probably more so than other communities. And we are surrounded by industry. We are surrounded by weather. If you're seeing our eyebrows go up during this meeting, every now and then there's a gust of wind that seems to be taking off the roof at Township Hall. So we do have a number of different contingencies that we need to be prepared for. And it's great to hear that you guys are right on that ball. You're ahead of the curve.
As a fire chief, there's a old saying, better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And the same goes for a fire. It's better to have too many people on scene than get into a dire emergency where one of our guys become trapped or lost in a scene and we don't have enough people or personnel to get them in there and get them out. It's always easier to turn the equipment back than to need it, and the time you're waiting for it to arrive is an eternity when you've got a man down, a child down, or a citizen down. This is what we plan for. And again, thank you to my firemen that put this together for the forethought and the planning that was involved in putting all this together. I can't thank them in the community for supporting us for these situations. I can't thank everyone enough. Groseal is a beautiful place because of our community, because of our people, and because of our citizens. I can't thank them enough. Thank you.
That's good. Thanks a lot, Rusty, for that. Smoke detectors?
Last item on our list, I'm going to tell a short story. We went to a we went to a smoke investigation on a house. Again, we had one of our elderly citizens there, and she forgot about her dinner in the oven, and it filled the house full of smoke. But when we got there, a couple of our firefighters, I'm not sure if it was my fire marshal or if it was one of my firefighters, but they noticed there wasn't a smoke detector going off. And they were very observant. And they asked the elderly lady, how come we don't hear your smoke detector going off? And she said she didn't have one. The one she did have started acting up, and it was out of her reach to be able to reach up to it, I believe, and replace it. Talking with a couple of other firefighters, we found out that there's a program out there, Michigan Prevention, and our fire marshal and a couple other guys applied And we received, Kevin, was it 120? We received 120 smoke detectors and 18 carbon monoxide detectors. That's the initial, and they're to be used for our population on Grosse Ile. If anybody needs a smoke detector, they can call the fire department. One of the requirements are we have to install it. It has to be in our community. And we will go out, we will install it for those people that maybe it's too hard for them to get up on a ladder to do it. They're 10-year sealed lithium batteries, so you don't have to worry about replacing the batteries in them, and they're there to help our senior population. Just as a side note, all this started because of this one particular call. And one of our firemen went to the hardware. He did buy a couple smoke detectors for this lady, and he went back to her residence with his son the next day and installed that smoke detector. A week or so, or 2 weeks later, we got in our shipment of smoke detectors, and they're out there. So give us a call at the fire department. Arrange to talk to our fire marshal. He will come out and install that smoke detector for any of our population that's handicapped, in need, elderly. We're here to protect you, and this is how far our volunteer firefighters reach out to serve our population. They are truly, their hearts are in this, and they want to protect our citizens on this island, and they truly believe in this program.
You may have mentioned that they're free also.
They are free, and there is no charge. Yes.
That's great.
They will come out to the house. I got to say a little more. They will assess your house, and they will put the smoke detectors where they're needed, if needed.
Yeah.
Yes. If you got 100, if you got 20 smoke detectors in your house already, they're gonna assess it and make sure that these are being used in the proper manner.
Well, that's great. That's super. Thank you, Russ, for those reports. That's the end of our discussion items. We have no action items. We have public comment, but I don't believe we have anybody here in person. So,
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn is passed, and I think the meeting's over. Thank you very much.